STEM intellect on problem solving across the globe. Next up, Peter.
안녕하세요. My name is Peter Osgood. I work at this interesting small college where there are very few powerhouse STEM schools that are also undergraduate only institutions, and we are one of those. There's probably no more than a handful or two of them, 10 at most. What is distinctive about our college are a few things. One is that we have a very clearly defined mission. That mission, in brief, is to produce well-rounded, socially conscious scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. And as a result of that mission, our curriculum is extremely intentional and is derived from that mission. So we have 3 big clusters of academic work that every student must complete. It's a very close-knit community. There are only 900 students. And that means that the students get a lot of attention from the faculty and all the research opportunities because we're an undergraduate institution. We're located about 50 kilometers east of Los Angeles, so in a very nice, warm climate with mountains of about 3,000 meters directly behind us. We're not far from an ocean, from a desert, and from the world's biggest human trap built by a mouse. That's Disneyland, for those of you who don't understand my reference there. It's a very diverse community. It may surprise some people for a really high-powered STEM school to be 50-50 male and female. We've got some attention for how diverse the student body is. About a little less than 10% of our students are international students. So with that, we're going to hear from the main man, Greg at Carnegie Mellon. So thank you.
I'm really glad this is being recorded because Peter Osgood and Harvey might just call Greg at Carnegie Mellon the main man, and it will live on now in perpetuity. That's fantastic. I want to echo what everyone else said. I hope everyone is doing well, and family and loved ones are staying healthy. So thank you very much for joining us right now. Carnegie Mellon is a small to medium-sized comprehensive research university located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh is on the eastern side of the United States, about an 8-hour drive from New York City, 4 hours from Washington, D.C. We offer undergraduate degrees in everything from computer science to artificial intelligence to math, musical theater, psychology. So we pretty much have everything that I think you could be interested in. We are about 7,000 undergraduate students and about 6,000 graduate students. Looking at the undergraduate population, we're about 20% international. We like to say you can travel the world without ever leaving campus. And actually, once you take our graduate population into account, we're about 50% international. So we definitely welcome students from around the world. We look forward to seeing students back on campus this fall. Next slide. So this is what we're going to talk about today. I've been tasked with kicking off the presentation. So we're going to talk about what is STEM. STEM is an abbreviation for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're going to talk about why STEM is important, how STEM in college is different from high school, why don't more people go into STEM, what kind of careers are available, how do you prepare for STEM, and some helpful links and suggestions. And then most importantly, we look forward to entertaining your curiosity at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So STEM in college is different from STEM in high school. I think the biggest transition that students will find as you enter college or university is that you go from being a student to being a scholar. And this is really kind of your first step towards becoming a lifelong learner. Colleges are going to look for students to find ways to own their education. What I mean by that is you'll see that some classes are taught differently. In high school, oftentimes you're presented with a problem and you have to find the solution to that problem. Especially in the STEM field, one of the biggest challenges for students early on is learning that they first have to find the problem. And I think that that is the hallmark of a valuable education in STEM is we're looking for students that are going to be able to see the world a little differently and find it's a mentor of mine would say new ways to do old jobs, which oftentimes is based in problem identification, not just solving. You'll see that a lot of the courses, especially early on in your career, are going to be taught in large lecture halls. That could mean that you could have a class with honestly a couple hundred students in it. I don't know that that'll be the case at the institutions represented here today. I mean, you could have larger classes, but especially in some of the larger schools in the United States, you could have several hundred students in a class that are going to be taught by a faculty member who is teaching to you in almost a presentation style. The good thing is then you'll also have the classes, oftentimes referred to as recitations, that are taught by graduate students or teaching assistants. In some cases, you could have these breakout classes, which are like review sessions that could be taught by even undergraduate students that did exceptionally well in that class. You won't have the same class every day. And I think oftentimes that's because you will be given new material. And as we talked about this journey to being a lifelong learner, you'll be expected to digest that information and then find ways to apply it either in labs or in homework assignments. Lab sections are almost a guaranteed part of your experience if you're going to study STEM. And in some cases, those lab classes can be several hours long. Or in some cases, you'll have to come in after hours to work on the labs in those classes. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about the rigor. I think oftentimes as students move into STEM in college, I think one of the big differences is you're going to be surrounded by students that are just as passionate about the topic as you are. And what ends up happening is students inevitably challenge one another as in addition to being challenged by the faculty member. So the classes start to become more rigorous, not only because the material is harder, but in some cases the competition from the other students can be challenging as well. You'll also see too that professors might not follow a textbook at all. I think at our institutions especially, you'll see in some cases that the faculty members wrote the textbook that maybe you were using in high school or in your secondary school experience. So it's really going to be based, the curriculum will be based on real world knowledge from the faculty member, how it's applied in a real world situation. Courses are very sequential as opposed to horizontal. So if you were to be, say, a humanities major or somebody that's studying English or history or philosophy, you would take kind of an a la carte approach towards your education and find classes that you want to piece together in a way that makes sense for what interests you. In the case of STEM, it's a very sequential curriculum. And you'll see that the classes are layered in a way that allows you to progress in the most efficient way possible, while at the same time understanding as much information as you possibly can. And not all institutions, but some institutions, you'll be required to do a senior thesis or a capstone. So at the end of your 4 years, your university will want to see how you were able to kind of pull everything together. Next slide. So how STEM at college differs from high school. Courses, it's hard to say that they'll attract better college students, but I think that they'll attract more like-minded college students. I think as you're probably experiencing in your school, you might have to take a class like, let's say it's AP physics or IB physics, and there's going to be other students in that class that maybe don't have the passion for physics that you do, but it's a necessary part of their curriculum in order to graduate from their secondary school. And in college, again, you're going to be surrounded by like-minded students that are just as passionate about the topic as you are. In college too, it's not so much the grade that matters, it's the journey that you took to get there. So it's not uncommon for, especially in the first couple years of college, as you're making that transition from student to scholar, you might get your first B or C grade of your career. But the good thing is everyone is kind of in the same situation. And grading on a curve would mean that if a lot of students in the class got a B or a C, the professor would kind of elevate the students to say your B now becomes an A, your C now becomes a B. And the point of that is to try and reduce the focus on the actual grade and focus more on the curriculum that you're learning. And as we already mentioned quite a few times now, the course content is certainly more rigorous and and the professors and your teaching assistants and your peers will do everything they can to help you kind of get through that curriculum. Next. So tips for success. I think the most important thing is to work in teams. If you think about, building a bridge, it's not just civil engineers that are going to ultimately build that bridge. You're going to have to work with biologists. You're going to have to work with mathematicians, public policy people. So, we in college, you'll definitely get exposed to what does it mean to work with students from across discipline and leverage the collective strengths of a lot of great minds to solve a common problem. And then lastly, persevere. Scientists fail all the time. I like to mention a paraphrase quote from Thomas Edison that said, so Thomas Edison, obviously the inventor of the iridescent light bulb, said he didn't fail. He just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And the point is you kind of learn from your mistakes, and with the right amount of perseverance, eventually you'll find a solution to any problem that stands in front of you. So I think now I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Excellent. So why is STEM important? Well, it's the driver of the creative economy. There's greater job growth in STEM than in other disciplines. It's a driver for innovation. If you think of how you're even able to view this presentation, couldn't have done it without technology. But it also, you've heard of wearable technology. So it invades fashion, it invades politics, it affects the economy, it affects social media, all kinds of trends, and societal factors influence technology. So it's not like STEM is some standalone discipline out by itself. It's deeply integrated into the human condition. Next slide, please. And it's an extremely efficient way for leadership to be developed. If you have particularly good ideas, particularly if you're good at communicating those ideas, you will find yourself in leadership positions before very long. And this gets, again, as Greg mentioned, to the collaborative nature and often the flexible nature of the work that one might do. Think of STEM as a helping field. And one of the questions you might ask yourself is, am I interested in helping one person at a time or a whole swath of people in a particular group? And STEM people tend to be problem solvers and trying to change society in that way. Next slide, please. Think of the people that you might be working with. They may care a lot about teamwork, about social justice. They're often people who perhaps see themselves as seekers of truth, and they want evidence to back up whatever it is they're discovering. It's also the case that salaries tend to be pretty high in STEM because they're particularly talented at problem solving. Projected for the next maybe 8 years or so is that the median income for people in STEM disciplines, at least in this country, is more than twice what the salary would be for people outside of STEM. So that's pretty exciting. You can take care of your parents in the way that they're expecting to be taken care of. There are all types of different STEM careers. It's often a misperception that you can only go into very few fields if you're a STEM person. If, for example, you're a mathematician, that you can only become a university professor, when in fact, mathematicians are incredibly valuable across a really wide range of fields of endeavor. And the STEM disciplines are growing very rapidly, about 60% faster than non-STEM disciplines. This is also the case that a significant number of the people who pursue STEM in the United States are from other countries, partly because in our country, we simply do not produce enough of our own students who gravitate towards STEM disciplines. So there's a good opportunity for an international student to come in and make a big contribution. Next slide. Other misconceptions, lots of interdisciplinary work. The exciting areas of STEM are usually at the borders between different disciplines. And ultimately what we're trying to produce at our institutions, and I think many of the institutions you'll see listed later on when you get to hear from Kristen, are ones who are trying to produce adaptive problem solvers. And I think that's one of the refrains you'll hear again and again about this that makes these sets of fields so exciting, is that there's always going to be change. But if you can solve problems, you'll be in demand pretty much for the rest of your working life. And with that, we're going to hear from Kristen, and she's got some great stuff to share with you.
Oh, Kristen, I think you're on mute. There we go.
Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart. There are so many really exciting and challenging problems out there in the world, and to solve them, we need all of the brains fully focused on this work. So right now, regrettably, 75% of the folks who are doing all of the groundbreaking work in science and engineering are male and white. And what we want is to make sure that the folks who are working on the problems, the people who are solving problems day in and day out, represent the world's population, represent the range of backgrounds and perspectives, because that will also give us a richer pool of talent and diverse viewpoints on how to solve the problems. And I think there's lots of research out there that shows the quality of the problems are the solutions that people come up with in diverse teams are stronger than if everybody on the team thinks the same way. Interestingly, women are less likely to enter into these majors and careers due to some misconceptions, as Peter was noting earlier, and they tend to gravitate toward majors that in their minds help them help people, help animals, and help the environment. The truth of the matter, though, is that science and engineering careers all help people and the community. So these are powerful tools to make the world a better place, and we want as many different people involved in solving those problems. The statistic in the bottom from the U.S. Department of Education is interesting in that while women represent more than half of the college-bound population, they only represent about a quarter of those working in these fields. Next slide. As you can see from these percentages, there's a strong trend toward the life sciences. And I think it's important just to remember that women have excellent ability in computer science and physical science, and are much needed to assist on all fronts. So do not be dissuaded. Next slide. What should you look for in a STEM program? Breadth and depth refers to the fact that you want to be well prepared for whatever your future career may bring. Interestingly, these are fast changing fields of study, and you may find that what you majored in college will not necessarily be what you end up doing for your career. And the breadth and depth of the academic program that you choose at whatever institution you choose to enroll at needs to give you the skills to adapt, to be resilient. We want to make sure that you are prepared for whatever the future may bring. And interestingly, on all of our campuses, Many of our fastest growing programs did not exist 10 years ago. So you want to think of yourself as someone who can adapt to whatever future challenges may be out there. And the math is absolutely essential as a building block. The more that you master, the more options you will have going forward in your fields of study. Choose your college carefully. What we want to make sure is that if you choose a particular college or university, that is an institution that will be committed to helping you get across the stage in a timely way. And these statistics help you see that there are differences between institutions in terms of their graduation rates and their persistence rates. What is particularly important for you if you want to choose a science or engineering related major is, as both Greg and Peter alluded to, these are going to test you. You are going to work very, very hard in college, and you want to be sure the college or university you pick is committed to giving you the support you need to thrive academically. How to prepare for STEM? You definitely want to take 4 years of math and take as much calculus as you possibly can. Calculus is really important to take in your senior year because it is going to come up in your first year of college coursework, and we want to be sure that's top of mind for you. If it's buried, if it's something you race to take early in your high school experience, earlier in your high school experience, you need to refresh your exposure to the field. You want to take rigorous English classes and take as many lab science classes as possible. Again, the work you do, particularly in your senior year, will be the base on which you build in your first year of college. I sometimes joke, it doesn't sound funny all the time, but that we want you to suffer as much as humanly possible in high school. So we really want you to challenge yourself, because when you come to college, there are so many distractions. There are lots of things that will be competing for your time and attention. And we want to be sure that you have really excellent academic preparation when you head into college. Plus, college moves fast. Professors move fast. And as you already heard, they don't even necessarily follow the book. So the more you can understand and take for classes before you start, the better. Obviously, you need to get good grades. And we want you to take advantage of opportunities to do science and engineering work outside of school. I'll just say too, anything you can do for summer programs, talking to your friends and your family if they are working in science and engineering, and find out what they do and why they like it and what they would recommend you do to be prepared. I'm ready. Next slide. You may be having a little trouble with the deck. I'm putting in here a quick commercial for the National Organization of Colleges and Universities. We actually, Peter, Greg, myself, and 30 some odd other colleges and universities are all part of the College Admissions Collaborative, highlighting engineering and technology. Together, we want all students who have an interest and a passion for science and engineering to pursue these fields because we know we need your talent, and we work together actually to make sure students realize there are lots and lots of choices out there. If you think you know everything about science and engineering and what's available to study at the college level, I can promise you there's more to learn. There are so many amazing fields and so many amazing colleges and universities to choose among. And I think we have a slide showing the list. Yes. And we'll make sure you have a link to the site that includes hyperlinks to each of these colleges and universities. This is the best part, questions. I'm going to turn it back to our host.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Greg, Peter, and Kristen. It's been really interesting to me as well, just to hear and learn more about STEM. So as Kristen said, this is a time for questions. Please type in your questions in the Q&A box. Don't be shy. And we will try our very best to answer as much as we can. So we have one here, so I'll kickstart with a question about how, as admissions officers from STEM universities, how you identify problem solvers. It was mentioned on several of the slides that all your institutions desire problem solvers on your campus, and that there are many, many issues that need to be solved and to identify. So how do you, as admissions officers, identify those who have the potential to be problem solvers on your campus? So anyone can take this, or all of you.
I'll start. I will say this is where we really appreciate what you tell us and what your teachers tell us about you. So my guess is that all of you have had to deal with setbacks in your life. Not everything has gone perfectly. And when you think about who will write a recommendation on your behalf, if there's a teacher who can talk about a situation where you have had to persevere, or in your personal statement when you apply, if you can talk about when you have had to be creative in solving a personal problem, at something at school or something at home, what you've done, that is a good place to start. I'll let Peter and Greg chime in if they have other thoughts on the problem solving. I will share quickly though that what happens when you're in college academically, it's, as you heard, less about coming up with the right answer for the test and more about taking what you've learned and actually using it in an applied situation. So showing that you can take what you've learned and use it in a meaningful way.
Peter and Greg, would you like to add to that?
No, I thought that was pretty good actually on my end.
Great. Okay, so there's a question in regards to a few questions in regards to the type of person one is and how they should package themselves. So you will have the range, and in this particular situation, the student said that they are really excited about computer science, but I'm assuming that on the other side, you might also have those who are not as focused on a particular STEM major and might be a little bit more broad and kind of loving all things like the liberal arts type subjects, but is still interested in focusing on STEM. The question is, do you have a certain type of student that you're searching for?
Authentic and integrous. So, I think that those are two very important traits in the college admission process. You want to package yourself authentically. So, it's hard for us to tell you what we're looking for when in some cases we don't even know what we're looking for, especially for the more selective universities. I think as we evaluate applications, we know and admit when we see it, but it's hard to describe exactly what it is. That's why it's important not to form your application based on who you think we want you to be. I can promise you we will have students in the first year class with perfect standardized testing, perfect GPAs, students that are involved in a wide swatch of extracurricular activities, but the only way we would ever have a Kristen Tishner is if Kristen applied to Carnegie Mellon. And if we want a Kristen Tishner, you could have all the same characteristics, but if that's really what we're looking for, then we're going to wait until we find it. As we talk about authenticity in the application as well, I would caution you about seeking outside help outside of your school, especially against the use of agents. We want to hear your voice in the application. We want to see that you read the essay, wrote the essays, that the letters of recommendation are from people who actually know you. You know, as we talk about perseverance, in some cases, the best letter of recommendation I think that any of us read are from the student who wasn't at the top of the physics class, but still found a way to get through it. There's a lot of evidence that says SATs are in no way a predictor of college success, but grit and perseverance are. So there are so many variables in this college admission process. If you start trying to be something you're not, regardless of how well it's packaged, it does come out in the application. While you might write 20 or 30 college applications, our Dean of Admission has evaluated 1/4 of all living alumni to Carnegie Mellon's applications. We've seen it all. We know authenticity when it's presented to us and when it's not. So, you know, it's hard for us to say this is exactly what we're looking for. I mean, we want you to be you, and at the end of the day, you know, hopefully it'll be a match that works out. In some cases it is, in some cases it's not. But with over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States, I think that's one of the beautiful things about coming to the US to be educated is there is an institution for everyone. And it's just about finding that right fit.
If I can add a little bit to this, I'm trying to imagine what it's like in your position. There are many, many kilometers away from us, and you have this powerful technology to get some information, but to know whether or not any particular school might be a good place for you. You saw from Kristen's slide, there's over 40 schools in this cachet group alone. So which one is the right one for you? I'd invite you students to spend a lot of time thinking about your own processes, how you learn best, what kind of people you like to learn with and from, what kind of problems you find interesting to solve, whether they're big societal problems or something that's more reflective of your immediate community, and build out from knowing yourself to find the colleges that match up with you. There are some powerful tools that are available to help you with that, to ask yourself good questions and then to find the colleges that match up to you, rather than you trying to match up with all these various institutions to avoid the kind of complication that Greg was talking about. So that's my word of advice for you.
Thank you. Good advice indeed. That goes beyond STEM institutions, but in general. So there are two questions in regards to majors. And I think both are in regards to transferring once you are in the university. So the first question, how difficult is it for liberal arts majors to move to STEM later on in college? So I'll ask that one first, and there's a second part to it. So maybe someone can answer that.
I'll start by saying it is much, much easier if you begin your college experience in a technical field and then go toward the humanities or the social sciences than trying to do the reverse. Strong, strong, strong recommendation that you start in STEM.
To add on that too, if you know that you want to study STEM, don't apply to an institution for the liberal arts thinking it might be easier to get in and then try and transfer. That just leads to frustration down
the line. Okay. So another question about transferring majors, but this time within the STEM field. So for example, going from applied math to computer science, how easy or not easy is it?
I think one thing you'll find out in college that you could argue that applied math is computer science, right? So, you know, I think that's why it's important to rely on your advisors. I think when we're all about to head into college, we have an idea in our head of what a major is and what field is necessary in order to get us on a certain career path. But in some cases, you might just have to look at a major through a different lens to realize that that can get you exactly where you want to be. So to answer your honest question with an honest answer here, I think it can still be challenging, but it is more doable because you're going to see more overlap in terms of the core classes that both of those majors would require. But it still can be challenging. I think what institutions run into is those are two very popular majors, and transferring is not only predicated on performance, but unfortunately it's also based on space availability in a lot of cases. And majors like computer science and applied math don't have a lot of students transferring out, but there's more students trying to transfer in. So you could have all the necessary requirements, but not be able to transfer in based on space.
And I think the answer to this question also depends on the institution that we're talking about. Different schools have different policies.
Yeah, on that note, just, you know, during this time, there are lots and lots of information online. All these institutions represented here and many others have made it very easy for you to find more information than there ever was before. So do your research, do go in and find out what the requirements are, what majors you are available, all the different things that you want to know. Definitely look online because it's all there. Okay, so there is a question, and I probably certain that this is also online, but the question is about summer programs. So given the uncertainties of the world right now with COVID-19, please, if you could, each of you talk to how your summer programs are going to look like this summer and what you would recommend to the students listening here today.
Our summer programs are all going to be online this summer. We're in Massachusetts, and part of this is due to where the state is in terms of coronavirus cases. So we are taking the safer path.
Yeah, we unfortunately had to cancel a few of ours, especially the ones rooted in the fine arts. But our STEM related summer studies opportunities are remote.
Peter?
We actually don't maybe yet have programs specifically for high school students. We have programs for our own students. Some courses, we do an awful lot of research over the summer, but it's preferred that we have students who are our own students because it engages our faculty and students in a closer relationship. That's very, very important to us. So that leads me to one more sort of a piece of advice for you. When you go to university, wherever you go, I invite you to make an attempt to develop a rapport with a professor, to get to know that professor as a person, and they get to know you. The reason for this is when you might eventually want to apply for an internship or a research position, and if that professor knows you well, you'll have a pretty significant advantage over other students who don't have that kind of relationship. And it may really pay out very well for you in opportunity for you later on.
Right. And kind of along the same lines, what is given that many of us will not be able to do what we would have liked to do or planned to do this summer, any recommendations on how one should spend their time? It might be more inside than outside, or less organized than before, and also how that impacts your reading of their application.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't mind to take a stab at this, this is a question we've actually been getting quite a bit. And, you know, I certainly appreciate the fact that the world has changed for a lot of us right now in the wake of COVID-19. And unfortunately, opportunities that were once available to us are no longer there. You know, but I think it's important to remember too, that for the vast majority of students looking to go to school in the United States, those opportunities have never been available to them, either because of competing priorities or, you know, maybe financial means. Summer opportunities come at a pretty hefty cost, and for some families, that was never a realistic opportunity. And while it might seem that this could potentially impact your college admission search and application, you know, removing advantage does not make you disadvantaged. And I think what's great, I think what's interesting about what we're experiencing right now is it's impacting everyone, right? So everyone across the world is kind of in the same boat right now. So if anything, what this is doing, it's more or less just leveling the playing field. So, you know, my advice to you would be, you know, again, as that mentor of mine once said, find new ways to do old jobs. I would say what's important to us in the college search process is that you're not just sitting around during your summer and playing video games. Find opportunities to get involved in service. I mean, this is a situation right now that is ripe for students to find ways to help others. And, you know, in the United States, there's a legend named Mr. Rogers who did a kids program that I think we all probably grew up watching. And one of his hallmark quotes was, "Look for the helpers." Right. So I think that this is a situation now where you can find ways to have an impact on your community. And I think that that is something that we all certainly value in the college admission application, is students that are going to find ways in which that they can impact those around them. So there are also lots of online. I think somebody mentioned that colleges are finding ways to put out their offerings remotely. So I'm sure there's opportunities out there for you to find ways to take classes online if you so choose. I mean, I wouldn't say do it because you think it's going to impact your college admission process, but if you truly have that thirst for knowledge, I'm sure you can find an institution somewhere that will allow you to take the class remotely. But you know, I think the most important thing is just enjoy your summer and find ways in which you can continue to impact the community around you.
If I can add to that, I've been thinking, as Greg has mentioned, we've all been asked to answer these questions of what will happen next year. If you can put yourselves in our position, what we'll be able to evaluate next year, given all the changes. So the first thing that's changed is how we can make ourselves available to you. We cannot travel. We've got to rely on remote methods to communicate to you. By this time last year, we had several hundred people visiting our campus for tours and information sessions. This year, we've had 0 from the spring. So it's just a vastly different set of opportunity about who are we interacting with. But from a selection standpoint, well, we've already had 2 significant cancellations of major tests. Whether the next crop can occur or not, very big question. And what kind of a test it will do is a very big question. How much can we rely on SAT or ACT? And certainly there's no IB test this year, and the AP tests were done very differently. So that's going to be a different kind of subject to evaluate. The way students are tasked to learn is different. The way students are graded is different at various schools. We're going to have to understand that. We're going to have to understand that students don't have as much opportunity to engage and develop in extracurricular activities and in leadership. And the relationships that lead to those letters of recommendation from your faculty might be undermined a bit by this COVID-19 process. So when we're trying to think about how our selection process is going, what that will look like next year, it will be very different. And I think I'll follow on the comments of my peers, and that we're going to be very much interested in the human element in this, and what kind of a person, what kind of attitudes and mindset toward problem solving these persons will have. That's going to typically come from the student's own perspective of themselves as a human being. And so I think that's going to be a very significant challenge for us as we go through the selection process. The things that we've relied upon in the past may not be quite as present in our selection process this coming year.
Thank you, Peter. I had a question specifically about the interesting statistic about women in STEM. So was wondering if maybe Kristen can start us off about the support that is on campus for women, and to those women out there listening to this who is really interested in STEM, but a little bit nervous about being the minority. What kind of advice and encouragement do you have for them?
Well, as I said before, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I think for women, this challenge is we tend to doubt ourselves. And so support is offered less in terms of academics. All of you have what it takes to excel in these challenging fields. It's more about helping you make connections to fellow students, to faculty, and often what helps most is connecting you to mentors in the field. So women who have gone through our universities pursued career paths in fields that are of interest to you. And so at WPI, for example, women will, alumni will come back to campus and will meet with students and answer questions and talk with them about their experience, which is really both inspiring and helpful. Those types of programs exist on lots of college campuses, and especially at places that focus on science and engineering. There is a good understanding that women benefit from networking with alumni from similar programs.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely found that to be true myself, to really take advantage of those networks and support system, and what Peter said earlier about making those relationships and connections with professors really do help and break your time in college. I do have a question, and might be one of my last questions here, unless other people want to type in their questions, but a question about being an international student and the support that exists on each of your campuses. What does that look like? What should an international student expect or not expect?
I think there's a web of support that's going to be available to all students, maybe an additional layer that's available to international students. When I say a web of support, I think once you get to college, especially as a first year, you're going to be flooded with that support, both from in your dormitories, you'll have RAs or residential advisors, you'll have staff members from student affairs that are helping you out, academic advisors. I think all of our offices also have something that's called in some form, like an Office of International Education. And these are specialists that can help you through the whole visa process. And they really are kind of your one-stop shop that can help you with everything that you need across your 4 years at an institution. So they are a tremendous resource that you should take advantage of. Also, too, I think you'll find that when you get to college, there are more and more students that are willing to ask for help, and kind of that stigma of saying that you need a tutor goes away. So there are a lot of people within our community, from current students that can help with homework or assignments, to, again, student affairs members that can help you get acclimated to the community, and then a whole array of academic advisors that will help you figure out how to kind of piece your educational experience together.
Can I also just share, despite what you might see on television, everyday Americans and the people on our campuses are really welcoming and excited to see students from other countries join our community. So I would just underscore the fact that we wouldn't be here talking to you if we didn't believe in our hearts that there's a place for you on our campuses, and that you'll be in a better place if you come and study with us. And likewise, we will be better, and our students who were born and raised in the States will be better for your time spent with us.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, I will start wrapping up here, because seeing that we are close to the hour. So if our admissions officers had any final words to say before we wrap up.
Have fun with this process. You only go through it once, and trust your secondary school counselors. I can see through the chat here, I know quite a few of the counselors that are on this call. And I can tell you, if they're on this call, they are top-notch counselors. Trust them for their guidance and their expertise. And hopefully we'll see a number of you on our campuses either this fall or in a future fall. Thanks for having us today.
I would add that this is a great opportunity for you to take initiative and responsibility for your own education, your own life. If you have questions, we're certainly more than happy to help you out, to give you counsel. I can tell you that if I meet a student that I don't think is a very good fit for our institution, I'm not going to try to convince them that our school would be. I want to help them make the best choice for them. So if we can find ways to engage you and help you, please don't be shy about letting us be in that position to help.
And we're almost out of time. I will just say best of luck. And we know you'll be enormously successful, whatever you choose to do and wherever you choose to go to college.
Great. And just to wrap up here, I hope this is encouraging to all of you in realizing that although this process of admissions is scary, that at the other end of the process are real people like Peter, Kristen, and Greg, who are handling your applications with care and with integrity. And they are not looking for robots. They're not looking for, they're not pushing you through this formula, but it is very holistic. And it is, as it was emphasized in the beginning, all about authenticity. Don't feel like you have to pretend to be someone or force yourself to do something, and especially during this time. I hope that your worries are abated in regards to feeling like you're missing out or that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, because that's not what it's about. So enjoy this time with your family. We do hope from all of us, from our institutions and InitialView, we do hope that you are safe and healthy and doing well. And we wish you all the best in this application. And we hope that you have fun with it too, that it's a time of discovery and a time of articulating that to others. So thank you very much for joining us. And we hope that you will join us next week. So 감사합니다. 오늘 참석해 주셔서 감사하고 다음 주에도 Barnard University, Dartmouth, UC Berkeley and Johns Hopkins 사정관들이랑 같이 시간 보낼 겁니다. 감사합니다. Good night, everyone. Thank you.